Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. We have a presentation with Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. Before we get started, a couple things. As always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to know more about those, you can find them on the company's website on their presentation. And there will be a significant Q&A section here. So feel free to input your questions in the Q&A box, or you can email them to me at deborah@adcap.ca. And with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce Alex Langer, CEO, and Greg Liller, COO. Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Doing great, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm looking forward to getting an update.
Yeah, it's been a little while. We've been super busy, especially at our projects. Rainy season is over. We got hit by a couple hurricanes, so made work a little bit slower, but no issues. And we've been pretty active the last little while here, so it's been quite good.
That's great. And for anyone that's brand new to the story, I would encourage you to check out some of the previous webinars on the Adelaide Capital YouTube channel or also on Sierra Madre's website. Just get yourself up to speed. This will be more of an update and a Q&A. So yeah, with that, Alex, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Sure. I'll give a quick little overview of the company, and then we'll get into the update. I think it's going to be more technical, and we'll let Greg get into that. But Sierra Madre Gold and Silver is an exploration and future development company that is focused on acquiring high value and quick production assets, precious metal assets in Western Mexico. Sierra Madre, we started trading on the Venture Exchange this year in April. To date, we have acquired two projects, the first being Tepic. We acquired 100% of the project from the main principal of Cream Minerals. It was about 4 years ago. In its heyday, Cream actually had a market cap of well over $100 million. But more importantly, they spent about $20 million in the ground, including 31,000 meters of drill core and a good amount of network, which came out quite positive. Tepic has had a number of historic resources, with the two most recent being one over 10 million ounces of silver equivalent, the other being over 18 million ounces of silver equivalent. Again, just whatever cutoff grade you wanted to use. The split in value is about 70% silver, about 30% gold. We've been busy. We've been busy exploring Tepic, and we've had some really good early success here. And I know Greg will get into that a little bit. I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but we've been drilling and a whole bunch of trenching. Most recently, in July, we optioned the Tigra project from Grupo Mexico. For those of you that don't know, Grupo Mexico is a multinational, multi-million-dollar company. I think they're the third largest producer of copper in the world. We are absolutely thrilled to be able to acquire La Tigra. It took a while, but we feel the potential really is excellent. I know Greg has had his eye on La Tigra for a number of years. Historically, La Tigra has been in and out of production for about 100 years. The head grade most recently was over 10 grams gold and over 350 grams silver. It's never seen a trench, let alone a drill hole. So we're quite excited. We're getting some results that should be coming in here very, very shortly. Corporately, we still have about $11 million in cash, great ownership structure. Management and founders are well over 40% ownership. Speaking of management teams, we truly have an excellent world-class team, which we can get into in a little bit. But technically, it's led by Greg Liller. Greg has been in Mexico since 1993. He's had 7 projects become mines, which is really, truly quite impressive. And he's built out just an excellent team kind of below him, including Luis Saenz, who I just got to spend a bunch of time with in Mexico. Luis came to us from Frisco, where he ran exploration for them. I think it was over 14 different projects. So he's really comfortable working on multiple projects. The whole goal, again, of Sierra Madre is to have about 50 to 100 million ounces of silver in inventory and production in the next 2 to 3 years. So production is key for us. Everything we're looking for and everything we're doing is pushing towards production. We feel there's a real opportunity to build kind of a junior mid-tier silver company within the next few years. And here are our projects. I'll quickly pass you over to Greg. He'll walk you through what he likes about them, the locations, things like that, the infrastructure, and then some of the work that we've been doing here recently.
Thank you, Alex. Tepic is located in the southern area of the state of Nayarit. It's just south of the capital of Nayarit. Infrastructure can't be better. We've got a regional airport within a few kilometers of the project. We're surrounded by major highways, paved highways. It's a paved road almost all the way into the project. I think only the last 3 kilometers are dirt, so it's excellent from that standpoint. Can we we go to the next slide? When we got the project, essentially they'd done a lot of drilling, but they hadn't done any of the real laying the geologic groundwork for the project. There had been no comprehensive mapping done. So we divided the area up into project up into 3 areas, obtained satellite imagery and a topographic map, first one the project ever had. And our central area, next slide. The central area was where all the historic work had been focused. And essentially they'd drilled out 3 with historic vein systems as they looked at it. It totaled about 3.5 kilometers in length. Our detailed mapping showed that really there was more than 10 kilometers there. And had excellent results with the reconnaissance sampling on this. Next slide. We conducted a RC drilling program in the summer of this year. We found 6 new zones. We also found some very thick zones compared to the historic drilling that had been done. A lot of that was due to the fact that they never bothered to assay all their core for some reason. But we were very pleased with the outcome of that. I mean, we've had up to 15 meters of over 400 grams equivalent. So that's a really nice, thick intercept. So we have high hopes that some of this is going to be amenable to bulk mining techniques.
Yeah, we noticed that quite a bit on the site visit, didn't we, Greg?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean the amount of this is something that's really impressed me about this project. When I first went to it before we acquired it, just the amount of alteration there, you can't account for it with 3.5 kilometers worth of structure. It's very pervasively altered. So it's a very, very large system and probably a long-lived one in order to produce all this alteration. Do we have the next one? The east area, absolutely no work had been done historically in this by the previous operator. We immediately found our Tauna structure, which is really a set of structures. Now it's measuring well over 1.5 kilometers in length. And we've had reconnaissance samples of up to it was 680 grams equivalent silver. We've just completed, I believe it's 3 trenches there. We have a couple more to go. And we'll use those to define our drilling program, which we hope to be commencing in the new year. The north area, again, very little work done there. We've got some basalt cover. The Eustatius is actually right on the edge of that basalt cover. And we dug some trenches there, starting in the basalt. It turned out the basalt was only about 1 meter thick. Eustatius, again, has had over 600 grams of equivalent silver returned. So based on the results of those trenches, we're going to be doing some new exploration work there. The upcoming drilling program will be a combination of exploration on the new structures we've found and some extension work on the old ones.
Yeah, and we should have some news on that program coming up here in the next few weeks in terms of the size of it and permits and all that good stuff.
Yep. There are several historic resources for the Tepic project. Variable cutoffs, it just kind of depends on what cutoff you want to use. The most recent one was 2013. I think it used a 75 gram cutoff. In the just 10 million ounces there. The one just prior to that used a narrower mineralized interval cutoff, and it came out at about 18. Like I said, it just depends on what you want to do. But all of these are open. And we've got all our new structures we found. We've got the east area, we've got the north area. So I fully expect these numbers to be increased. Metallurgy is very important. If you can't get the metal out of the rock why put the money in the ground? And I just walked from it. It's just a rock. Previous operator did standard bottle roll tests. Those came out with pretty typical results for these Sierra Madre gold silver systems. They only ran them out 72 hours. Operationally, I've always run them out about 96 in the operations I've been involved in. We've leached for 96. So you could boost that silver up a couple more percent. Most importantly to me, and what really grabbed my attention was this flotation followed by cyanide leaching of the tails. The silver recovery jumped up to 90%. And since we're a very silver dominant system here at Tepic, silver recovery is going to be very important. So we're going to do a lot of work focusing on that.
Now move on to La Tigra.
Yeah, La Tigra, we just acquired that, or we made the deal with Grupo back in July, I believe it was. We're fortunate in that Grupo has only done one other deal with a junior mining company, and that was quite a while back. They just don't do it because of our corporate makeup and the people involved. It took a while, but they were finally agreeable to entering into an agreement on this property. I've had my eye on La Tigra for quite some time, probably over a decade. It was a historically significant producer back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Some operation was done in the 80s, but as far as we're aware of, there was no drilling done. There's no evidence of any drilling being done. As Alex said, there was no modern trenching done either. So this is when we're starting from scratch on. We've released our preliminary results of that reconnaissance work that we're doing there. And we've had up to, I believe it was 18 grams gold equivalent in some of the recon sampling. Again, we're taking this the old-fashioned way. The first thing we did was acquire satellite imagery and have a topo map constructed. We've now completed mapping the area within our concession boundaries at a 1 to 2,000 scale. And we've initiated a trenching program there. We should have initial results out on the first trenches very shortly. There's a section of the project. It's very interesting in that when we all the data was really focused on this El Tigre vein, and our reconnaissance sampling has shown us that no, it's a stacked series of veins, which gives us multiple targets per drill hole and potentially a bulk tonnage configuration with these multiple veins being stacked on top of each other. There is some active Gambesino artisanal type mining in the area. There is visible gold. We were panning some of the samples when we were down there last week, or I wasn't, I can't pan with the dam, but the Gambesinos were doing it for us. And it's fine grained. It's fine grained, but it's we're gonna have to be doing some metallic assays.
I think we have some videos of that on our social media as well. If not, we'll share that.
Yeah, and so like I said, I've had my eye on this one for a long time, and I have very high hopes for it. So
yeah, how many trenches are we doing at La Tigra? I think we were on 10 while we were down there.
Yeah, number 10. I'm gonna keep digging trenches until Alex tells me I can't spend any more money on it. But as long as the results are coming in, and again, these results are going to be applied to our drilling program, it's a very necessary part of the project.
And we're getting pretty close to defining some drill targets there as well, Greg?
Yes, yeah. Well, you can see the section there. I think we've already got what, 3 planned holes there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's reasonably straightforward, but you still want that trench data in order to refine things. Drilling's very expensive, so I want to make sure I'm getting all the bang for the buck we can out of this.
That's perfect. It's a great update. There's more information, of course, on the website in terms of share structure and what we're trying to do, but maybe we'll invite Deborah back to ask any specific questions, and maybe we'll get back into the work program that's happening at Tepic as well.
Sure. Well, let's start with La Tigra. So Greg, I meant to ask you this before. With your trenching program, why is it so important to trench? What are you trying to achieve? Is it because of the vein system? Maybe you can explain a little bit more to lay people like myself.
A trench is just like a drill hole at surface. We're using portable rock saws. We're taking a deep cut. You can stick a 2x4 into all these samples that we're taking. So they're essentially a drill hole at surface. And we hope to be able to use these in our resource estimation. The third-party consulting firm I worked with on another project recently in Mexico, we developed this manner of sampling using these rock saws, and they were willing to accept that as the equivalent of a drill hole. So it's very important. I mean, you can see from that section up there, if you can project from surface down to the next drill hole, you're going to get assurances of more indicated, if not measured, than you normally would with a 45-degree hole. There's an example of our trenching. You can see that that's a very continuous sample. You don't see that very often anymore. You go into some of the old mine workings, and that's pretty typical. That's how they did their sampling. They didn't have a lot of underground core rigs back in the early 1900s. So, but no, we're getting a really good representative sample out of all this. This is at Tepic, and it's our trench 11A, and I believe that one returned over 12 meters of better than half a kilo silver equivalent. So our trenching is very significant at both projects. The trenching at Tepic is also demonstrating that we have two dominant structural systems controlling the mineralization. And this particular trench was lucky enough to be at the intersection of the two of them. And that's only because it was at the intersection that it became apparent that we had this other structural set involved. So it's good for the grade data, it's good for the geologic data, and it just really helps you to plan your drilling program efficiently. Like I said, drilling's expensive, 90 to 110 bucks a meter. So you don't want to waste it. You certainly don't want to burn a hole for no good reason, which is, I've seen that done quite a bit.
Yeah,
proper groundwork.
Trenching is much more cost effective. I know right now, just looking at the budgets and what we'd be doing, we've been spending only about $60,000 to $70,000. That's all salaries and everything in Mexico, including trenching, including assays over the last few months. And we're getting some great results that are coming through. So I'm happy to continue these programs, especially the amount of information we get and the value we get for that. So it's a good way to push the projects forward without spending too much money. And then also being able to focus the drilling, as Greg just mentioned, even better.
And it's really helped during this hurricane season. We've kept a data flow coming in. The hurricanes haven't been all bad. We've actually got a lot of fresh exposure and clean rock exposure out of all the rains, and it's helped us to find additional mineralized structures at both projects. So it's had its good points too.
That's great. So going back to La Tigra, how thick are the high-grade gold intercepts in the trenches?
Again, we haven't published anything. We don't have a lot of results back yet, but I always had felt that the structure was going to be at least 10 meters in width at La Tigra. Some of these other ones, we've got the El Camino is a brand new one. Judging by the trenches, it's going to have significant thicknesses too. But yeah, I'll stick my neck out and say it's going to be at least 10. How's that?
All right.
Big risk you're taking there.
Okay, well, moving over to Tepic. Actually, Alex, I don't think you gave us a lot of the background on the deal that you structured originally. Maybe you could go over that for anyone that's
Sure.
interested.
Or Tigra or Tepic or both?
Tepic or both, actually.
Yeah, so I'll quickly do Tepic as we're on it. In essence, we were able to purchase the asset from one of the principals who was at Cream. Obviously, Cream is no longer around, but the one principal took the property on in lieu of payment, as happens. We were able to structure a deal of all cash, which is great. So it's $450,000 US for the project. I believe we have 2 more payments, or one is due now, and then another payment of $50,000 in April, and then we'll have control 100% of it minus a small royalty. We can buy back the royalty for about $1.5 million US, or it's capped at $4 million. So it's really insignificant in terms of royalties because it is capped. So it was quite a favorable deal. We were able to buy it 4 years ago. So obviously precious metal markets or any of the capital markets weren't as good as they are now. So we were quite delighted, and it's been an excellent stepping stone for us. For the Tigra, we've structured it more of a joint venture for the time being. In essence, we have the right to acquire 100% of the project. However, Grupo can back in after 3 years if we achieve more than 1 million ounces of measured and indicated reserves of gold. And that's within 3 years, and at which point they can elect to do a joint venture, 51-49 in their favor. If not, then we would acquire that project fully for 100%, and they would have, again, a similar NSR royalty to Tepic.
I'd add that the vendor Tepic told us that he had been offered more in the past. It's just that I think he needed the money at the time, and we caught him on a weekday. So, and metal prices were substantially lower then too.
Yeah, and Deborah Silva tried to buy this project as well for an all cash purchase. Yeah, about just under 10 years ago as well.
And then going back to Tepic, what type of gold silver deposit is it, and what is the primary host rock to the gold and silver?
It's a lapilli tuff, andesitic lapilli tuff, which basically is an asphalt deposit, and lapillis are pieces of pumice. So that's the host rock. It's a predominantly a low sulfidation, what's called low sulfidation system, typical hydrothermal. It does have a bit of an overprint, judging by some of the types of clays of a high sulfidation system, but that would potentially have been a later event. But no, it's a also they're called hot springs gold deposits.
Can you point to an analog in Mexico or elsewhere?
Just about any of the mines in production in the Sierra Madres are these same things. Ocampo was my baby from the first drill hole in the district up until commencement of production, and we actually had 2 operations there. 12,000 ton a day open pit heap leach, and a 1,500 ton a day underground mine. Palmarejo is another one. Agnico Eagles, it's just north of Ocampo. It's their big Mexican mine. So no, these are quite common throughout the Sierra Madres. And I mean, Sierra Madres are one of the most juiced up areas in the world in terms of gold and silver deposits. Guanajuato is another one. That was one of the Kubo mine. I had played a big role in it when not only acquiring it from X Gold, but kind of bringing it out of almost bankruptcy. But no, these are, I've pretty much spent my career working on these epithermal.
So you've had a bit of experience in it, Greg.
More years than I'd like to talk about, but yeah, something like over 40 years.
Okay, great. And maybe you could talk a little bit about the infrastructure in the area and how this plays into your strategy, the hub and spoke strategy. I don't know if you went into that in full detail on this webinar.
No, I don't think we touched on that.
That's what I'm here for. Keep you on track, Greg.
Yeah. The concept is to acquire multiple properties all within trucking distance of each other, and then have a central processing facility. So you got the spokes to the wheel feeding the hub. I figure you can probably go somewhere between 200 and 300 kilometers. Trucking, there are people going farther than that in some areas. But Tepic and La Tigra fit right into this. They're only about 150 kilometers apart. In order to make that work, you have to be in good infrastructure. You can't be 12 hours from anywhere in the middle of nowhere with no grid electricity in sight. I mean, I've done projects like that in the Sierras, and they're difficult. Everything becomes more costly, and when you get into operations, it's much more costly. So we're acquiring these projects with an eye towards infrastructure. La Tigra is about, I think it's 8 kilometers off the paved highway. And there's actually some 20-ton trucks coming out of that area now in conjunction with the Gambesino. So it'll require a minor upgrade. The mine in the 80s and 90s was 250 tons a day. So it's just a matter of fixing up the roads some, but both of them will be easy to get equipment and people in, and to get the ore out of to a central processing facility. And we've been looking at a couple of various plants around the area. It's a little early to be putting our money into buying one right now, but they are available. Or we could start from scratch and go with a new plant. Alex has some associates in South Africa that took over a lot of Rio Tinto's fabrication operations. So they're pretty confident they can get us something built very cost effective.
And so once the mill is built and you've got one, maybe two of the projects into production, you're mining there, would you toll mill from other properties that you don't own? Would that be part of the strategy, or would you only process your own ore?
You could look at that. A lot of times I've seen that kind of situation devolve into an argument about, oh no, my grade was a lot higher than that. You're cheating me. So yeah, you'd have to be careful, but under the right circumstances, if it makes sense economically, why not do it?
And
I mean, it's always bottom line, right? Can you make a profit off of it? Then do it.
And how big of a mill are you thinking about? Like, what would your production capacity be?
We're going to have to get some drilling done and get a PEA done. There's a lot of work that will have to be done before you can really even put a number to that.
Okay.
But one thing we have talked about is if we do a kind of centralized facility, it would be modular then. You wouldn't be restricted. We'd probably put it somewhere in the middle, maybe someplace a little flatter. So it wouldn't be restricted in terms of mountains or creeks or anything like that. So if we put on new projects or new projects came along, or if we want to increase production, then these things would be modular in nature. So you could increase as needed.
Got it.
And in my experience, the one mistake a lot of people make is they make it too big to begin with. And then all you end up doing is shoving rock through your plant because that's the capacity that you have. And engineers tend to focus on meeting capacity as opposed to making metal. And so I've seen a lot of operations go south because of that. Scale up gradually. It's the way it was done in the past until, I don't know, maybe the last 20, 30 years ago. Even the big copper mines started out small and they just scaled up and added more ball mills as they increased. I mean, it's very hard to shrink things. You can always make them bigger, but you can't shrink them.
Got it. I have one more question just around this whole strategy. So you went public in April and stocks performed reasonably well in pretty dismal markets since then. So congrats on that. You had one asset, you've acquired a second in that time frame. Like looking at this map that you have of Tepic, like what do you envision this looking like in, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years? How many projects do you think you have? Like what kind of would you be in production then? Would you be in production at multiple assets? Kind of maybe you can give you the longer term plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a stab at that one. So you're absolutely correct, Deborah. That's kind of our time frame. I think with Tepic, if we were to acquire, let's say, no more projects and we had Tepic and Tigra, we would be comfortable with that. We think things would be progressing well. I think Tepic, the goal here is after the next drilling campaign, which we will have news on that in the next few weeks here in terms of the size and scope. Obviously, the trenching, we released some of those numbers, and Greg spoke with them earlier. It's gone extraordinarily well. So we're looking at a much larger drilling program than we had anticipated, which is always a good thing. So that'll be announced over the next little while. That will take some time, but if everything goes well and the assay turnaround times can be a little bit quicker than they have been, we'll have that resource out kind of first half of next year and then right into PEA work. We've done it multiple times. We're quite comfortable doing that and then pushing that forward. And you're right, if everything goes really well and we start the permitting process, environmental work, all that good stuff is actually ongoing now, that 2 to 3 timeline for Tepic could make sense. And at the same time, we have the Tigra. And again, it's going to be dependent on the size of the Tigra and where we want that to get to. But that should be kind of 8 to 12 months behind. So if we can get Tepic kind of up and running in, about 3 years, that would be great. And then let Tigra shortly thereafter. However, in the meantime, we do have some, really supportive and large shareholders. We want to build a junior mid-tier precious metals company. We think there's a kind of a gap there to go from something that's a little bit smaller, but can grow into something bigger. And there's value associated with that. We are actively looking at other projects. There's nothing imminent, I'll promise you that. But we have a big list and we are kind of knocking them off shortly. Again, it's got to be high value assets that we think has potential to get in production. There's some out there that are, ready to go. So if we were to acquire, one of these, then, those timelines could be accelerated quite quickly. Anything we are looking at, some of them might already be in production. So we have a bit of optionality there. We do have some shareholders that want to support us in terms of cash if and when those opportunities come. Again, nothing imminent, but we're actively looking, but we do love our 2 projects and we're going to push those forward.
Right. Well, I don't need to get you to list catalysts because you just gave us what to expect over the next year or so. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you gentlemen wanted to touch on?
Our environmental and social activities. It came to our attention at La Tigra that there's at least 6, if not 8, children living there that don't have a school to go to. There's no educational facilities there. So we've been actively involved in talking with the equivalent of the local school district on what we can do to help get these kids in school. There's some of the other communities in the immediate area have similar needs. So we're working out a program to help get these kids in school.
Yeah, it's one of the nice things about mining. I've been doing this for a little while here, and we're building wealth creation in terms of our portfolios and what we're trying to achieve. But we can do a lot of good as well, and that's kind of this cool focus. I'm kind of on the end of the millennial, I guess, spectrum, if you want to say that. But doing mining for good, and this is just the perfect opportunity for us to be able to do that. It's community. The children are lovely, but as Greg mentioned, they haven't been able to go to school over the last 6 months. And education is, in my opinion, is so important. If people can't get an education, you're not going to be able to, get a leg up in life and, achieve your goals and what you want to do. So for us to be able to do something small, it is only 7 kids, but it could change 7 lives. And the amount of cost is minimal, and it helps it, the community relations and everything. And it's going to be something special that we're really looking forward to. In essence, we're buying a vehicle, hiring a driver, and a full-time teacher for these students, and they'll be able to go to the local community. They'll be able to, get out from, just being, kind of within their homes and experiencing more community life. And it's going to be great for them. So, even if this project doesn't work, they're going to hopefully get an education, and we'll be able to, help out just a little bit.
That's great. Well, that's a wonderful initiative. We should definitely post about that on social, maybe put a slide in eventually to your presentation. That's great. Well, I look forward to coming down to site one day. When are you running your next site visit?
It's going to be the end of January, and absolutely Deborah will be there, and hopefully we can get a few more of our investors. And it's super easy, as Greg mentioned. We're an hour, 2 hour by road from major city of Puerto Vallarta or Mazatlan, so we're quite fortunate. And Mexico's not a terrible place to have to visit. So the people there are just lovely, and the weather's not so bad either.
Yeah, especially this time of year. Great. And for anyone that's interested, if you want to see some of the photos and videos from the recent site visit, it's on the social media feeds for Sierra Madre. So feel free to check those out. Anything else you wanted to discuss today, Alex, Greg?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, lots of news coming. Finally, the assay results are coming in. Things were a bit delayed, nothing to do with us. Really just, I think everybody within the region is having some issues. They're up to 7 to 9 weeks delays in receiving full assays. We're getting the golds a bit quicker, but the silvers are taking a bit longer. But over the last little while, they're coming in week by week a little bit faster. So it's going to really help out when the drilling programs at both projects get rolling here, hopefully pretty soon. And we'll have news on that here shortly.
And you've got some pretty significant marketing efforts ahead of you into year end as well. I think you're going to.
We're getting on the road again, which is getting quite exciting. So I know Greg and myself will be in London coming up for a couple of conferences. We have stuff scheduled for next year. So as the world kind of returns to a normal or new normal, it'd be nice to tell a story. The OTCQ listing is well underway, so there should be news on that in the next little while as well. And then hopefully we can start telling the story a little bit more, especially with the news flow coming from technical information that Greg and the team are able to produce.
Great. Well, thanks for the update. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out and I'll get those answered for you. And yeah, thanks for participating, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having us, Deborah.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Take care.